Welcome to Stone Cold Stros, episode 19 of season 2. I'm Brandon Strange. I'm joined by Charlie Palillo and Josh Jordan. Read Charlie's column weekly on sportsmap.com. Follow him on X at Palillo. Read Josh's work daily on sportsmap.com. Follow him on X at Josh Jordan 975. Quick shout out to our subscribers who helped us surpass 24,000 subs last week as we remain on our drive to 25 as we reach ever closer to that 25,000 subscriber goal. If you haven't yet, we invite you to support local, independently owned media right now by hitting subscribe on the channel and click like on the video should you feel inclined. Charlie, I couldn't help but think about you on Sunday. One of your Palilloisms. Momentum lasts until the next game. The Astros got absolutely spanked on Saturday, only to carry a no-hitter into the 8th on Sunday. The Astros have gone 5-5 in their last 10 and now find themselves 9 games out of first as we record this. Besides the Abreu release, the big news over the weekend was Verlander getting scratched from his start with a sore neck. And of course, Orbit making the mascot Hall of Fame. Somewhere Junction Jack is really plotting his revenge. Hunter Brown has looked excellent over his last several starts. Ronel Blanco has been nothing short of an ace for this team over this season, especially compared to the two guys who are supposed to be the aces in Fromber and Verlander. Charlie, does the success of the two young pitchers give you encouragement that the Astros, should they be able to find their offense and be able to, find some sort of consistency with the bats, they can finally take advantage of this week's schedule over the next several weeks? Or are we just in wait and see mode with this Astros team to prove that they are even a good team?
Yeah, I think wait and see is where it's at. I mean, they're team hamster, running on that wheel, but not really getting anywhere. 2 out of 3 over the Tigers was a decent weekend, except really it wasn't. You mentioned the Verlander neck discomfort. That's what we heard about Christian Javier, right? Evidently, with Verlander, it's genuinely just neck discomfort, cross fingers and all that. But when you're taking 2 out of 3 at home against a no better than mediocre Tigers team, while the Mariners are sweeping 3 and while the Twins are sweeping 4, the Astros lost ground on both fronts. Right now, 9 games back of a Mariners team. Imagine if Seattle could hit worth a damn. The Mariners team batting average is .221. And they're running away with the division. What if they add bats? I mean, if their pitching doesn't break down with multiple injuries, it's getting close to going to take a little baseball miracle for the Astros or Rangers, for that matter, to reel them in. The Twins whipping up with the 4 games they had at home with the A's. The Astros 6.5 games back of the 3rd wild card spot. Right, they're light years behind the Orioles. They're 8.5 games behind the Royals. Then you have the Twins, in addition to the other teams ahead of the Astros in the wild card standings, which is, well, seemingly just about everybody else. The Red Sox and the Rays and the Blue Jays, still the Tigers. So, no, there's not a whole lot to hang your hat on. But if they're going to mount a legit surge at some point, clearly you're going to need the rotation depth on the big league roster to do it, because Garcia or McCullers, right, we're still ways away from the All-Star break where there's any chance of either of those guys joining. I mean, if it turns out Verlander has to miss more than the 1 start, that's another serious They started this stretch of 8 out of 9 series against teams with 500 or worse records. So far in this stretch, they're 7-5, which in a vacuum isn't great, but it's solid. Right? It's .583 baseball, 7-5. You go 7-5, 7-5, 7-5 the entire season, you win 94, 95 games. But if the Astros play at that pace the rest of the season, there's basically no chance they're going to make the playoffs. Because if they play at a 95 win pace the rest of the season, they're going to wind up with 85 wins. And, well, the 3rd wild card spot, the Twins, the division, the Mariners, they're both on pace to win 90 at this point. And for the Astros to stay on even a 95 win type pace is ambitious, because they just showed no sustained consistency, right? Their last rock bottom point of 12 games under 500 was at 12-24. Since then, they're 21-15, which is good, but not special, and absolutely not good enough. It's not where you want to have to hang your hat at this point. If you're the Astros, you're an Astros fan, but there are ample cases in history of teams being this far back or worse, deeper into the season. Since the Astros are getting where they need prescription glasses, if they're farsighted, to see the Mariners atop the standings. 1995, Seattle. The season wound up a little shortened because it was coming off the strike year in 94, so it was 144 games. But August 2nd, the Mariners were 13 games out of first place. And they actually didn't play historically great baseball. The then California Angels collapsed. The Mariners did enough to reel them in and beat them in a one-game playoff to make the playoffs back in 95. Famously, the 1951 Giants who won the pennant. They were 12, 13 games out in August, and they played ridiculous ball, 39-6 to end the regular season. I mean, generally a never say never guy. There's no chance, zero, the Astros winning 39 out of 45 games. But we've talked, repeatedly about the 19 Nationals, 19-30. The Braves in 21 were under 500 in early August. And sometimes Jupiter just aligns with Mars, but there's not a specific path with this Astros club to say, here's why it will or should happen. Sometimes it just does. Not much of a marketing slogan, but maybe that's what the Astros can put on some billboards at the All-Star break. Sometimes it just does.
All right, I'll start with the positivity here. One of the big concerns coming into the season was they can't win games at Minute Maid. The batter's eye is a big problem, and they just can't win there. Well, Astros are 19-19 at home. Can you believe it? They are actually at 500 in their home ballpark. So we can at least get rid of the narrative of that's why it hasn't been going well for them. Is they play better at home than they do on the road. So that's a step in the right direction. I'm with Charlie here. I think we talked about this last week. It's the starting rotation that scares me. And one of the things I brought up was that, Verlander's in his 40s pitching on 4 days rest over and over again. Is that sustainable? And here he is missing a start with the neck. And then I also brought up Arrighetti. I was like, he's a rookie and he hasn't thrown as many innings as they're going to hope he's going to be able to throw. And we're going to come up on some of those inning caps on him. And then what happens? He gets just absolutely shelled the other day. And that's really all you have are those five guys. So that really concerns me that, we're only in June and there's a long way to go. And as we mentioned, Garcia, McCullers, who knows with those guys, not a lot on the farm system. Would you even want to sink anything into a trade in a season where it just doesn't look like it's your year? They just seem snake bitten. And that's the other thing that bothers me is it's not just them. Fromber has a couple great starts, and he just goes out and gets shelled against the Giants the other day. Hader comes in the finale, gives up a run. We know Presley's been more down than up most of this year. It seems like they just spring a leak at a different spot. When something else kind of gets fixed, then you look at a different part of the ball club, and that starts going downhill. Jake Myers is coming back down to earth. Chas McCormick hasn't shown to be what we were hoping he was going to be this year. Singleton's a below average first baseman. Hopefully he plays better, but seems like he's going to get most of the starts, and his track record says we can't really count on that. So, they just seem snake bit. Diaz starts blasting home runs seemingly in every game, and then he hurts his finger and can't play for a few days. It just seems like one of those years for the Astros. I hope they get it going, but it's the pitching that concerns me the most because the hitting's really good. They are fourth in MLB and OPS. So as a team, they're hitting good, but the pitching, the injuries, the inconsistencies, and the back of the bullpen has not been the bill of goods we were sold that, hey, you get to the seventh inning, these games are over. That just really hasn't been the case all season long.
I think within the management structure, you may have a couple of competing viewpoints, and I understand both. Right? Dana Brown was not here for 6 of the 7 years of the run of excellence. So he's not wedded to stuff that predates him. He's not going to wax nostalgic about what happened in 2017 or even 2022. So he probably has a clearer viewpoint of where the Astros are now and where he might like to chart the course. But if you're Jim Crane, upper management, it's been here through all the glory. I think you're naturally loath to let it go and say it's over until it's just irretrievably, irreversibly, indisputably, you're a complete moron if you believe there's any hope otherwise, over. So you want to try to squeeze the last drops of juice from that orange if you think there's anything in there. And, 6.5 out, their outlook is not good, being behind so many other teams in addition to the Twins, but they're not just absolutely a rotting carcass at this point. And as we talked about, I believe last week, we're now inside a month to the All-Star break and a little over a month to the trade deadline. Even if you're thinking, stop being Pollyanna, they have no chance, it's over. Well, you're not going to get appreciably more now if you start selling off what you can than if you give it this next month and see where you're at after this stretch of largely soft opponents. And you have the Rangers as the last series going into the break, at Seattle the first series out of the break. And if they're 9 games back of the Mariners after that series, it'll mean they've likely already lost the season series. And if you're further than 6.5 games out of the third wild card spot in late July and behind a half a dozen teams and showing no signs of being able to rip off 22 wins in 28 games or something like that, then you sell, and you still have a full week's time to choose to sell. But if I were them, even though it feels like you're spitting into the wind right now, I would not let go of that rope just yet.
Josh, you brought up the situation at first, and we'll get more specifically into the Abreu drama a little bit more later. But in the short term, the Astros have not treated that position as a meritocracy as they've been trying to work through the Abreu situation. And they hope that John Singleton can recapture the pace that he was on when Abreu was in Florida trying to find his swing, where he had raised his OPS to a 787. But look, admittedly, him hitting 217 is better than what Jose Abreu was doing, but they don't seem interested in playing Joey Loperfido at first. Charlie, how long can they go if every game counts right now and they need to play at a voracious pace to get back in this thing, being 9 games out at first right now? How long can they go with first base being an automatic out?
Yeah, it's not as if one spot fixed that and everything falls into place. We should include that the continued absence of Kyle Tucker, another one of the Astros, it's a little deal, really, just a day or two. Day after day after day later, and Kyle Tucker, we still probably won't see him until at least this coming weekend. But the trickle-down effect. I mean, Sunday, they trotted out a 4, 5, and 6 in the lineup of Yainer Diaz, John Singleton, and Jeremy Pena. Credit to Singleton for the little spurt that he had. But, Tony Gwynn didn't hit 330 every week of his career, every month of his career. Great player. Jose Altuve recently concluded the most pitiful month of hitting since 2013 for Jose Altuve, right? The greats are going to have their valleys. Bad players are going to have stretches where, hey, they were good. Body of work. John Singleton's body of work is clear that he is the primary first baseman at this point. It's just sad. And that's not on John Singleton. But he's at 1 home run in his last 85 at-bats, not hitting 200 over those 85 at-bats, and OPS below 550, worse than what Abreu was last year. But now he's the predominant first baseman because you see more right-handed starting pitchers than left-handed starting pitchers. Dubon platooning with the way they're doing it makes sense. Dubon's career numbers against lefties are way better. So Dubon should be in there against all lefties at first base. But the refusal to give Loperfido a look, who's 7 years younger, he's more athletic. At this point in their careers, whose resumes would you say has more hope going forward, Loperfido or Singleton? I mean, do we even need to have this conversation? Loperfido is not a great prospect. He was mashing, and good for him to at least get his name seriously into the conversation. It should be noted, the Pacific Coast League is a hitter's paradise. So Loperfido's stats, like everyone who plays in that league, pumped up better than they truly are. Certainly better than meets the eye. The Astros, 4th in the American League in OPS. The Astros OPS, if in the PCL, would be next to last. The Sugarland Space Cowboys OPS is more than 100 points higher than the Astros team OPS. So either they have it completely backwards and all the Space Cowboys should be hitting for the Astros and all the Astros should be, no, that's not it. it's an offensive freak show. Ballparks like Albuquerque and Reno and Salt Lake City. But Loperfido, in his little major league taste, with all the strikeouts, still hit better than Singleton could ever dream to hit, 333 over a 3 or 4 week stretch. And with Singleton, to hang your hat on things, the power, big bad brawny John, right? 1 home run and 85 at bats. It really is mind-boggling that they're gonna cast their lot with Singleton. Loperfido's eligible late this week. If he's not up, I mean, John Singleton, he belongs more DFA'd than he belongs in the lineup regularly against any sort of big league pitching.
There's something about it. They don't want to play Loperfido at first base yet. They don't think he's ready. And I've questioned too that them playing him in the outfield, then the next day at first base, then the outfield, then first base. If you really want to get him ready, you'd be playing him at first base every day, but they're not doing that. And it seems like it'll be maybe Chas McCormick goes down. He still has some options left. Where it's like, to me, the biggest hole you need to plug is right there at first base. And I just like the grit of Loperfido, coming up and getting a big hit in a key spot, driving in some runs in front of the hometown crowd. His parents, it didn't seem like the moment was too big for him. He didn't pull his head trying to crank it up into the upper deck. He made good contact and slapped a hard single into the outfield. And he did that pretty regularly in the limited time he had. But there's something about it. They're seeing something at first base they don't like. And they kind of poo-pooed, Yiner playing at first and Caratini also. Like, they brought it up as a possibility, but they just don't seem to want to do it. I don't get it, but there has to be some reason. There must be something they're seeing or hearing from their scouts and other coaches that tell them that's not the best way to go. At some point, what do you have to lose is kind of where I'm going with it.
Precisely. Singleton's defensive metrics are terrible. I mean, I think he's a little better than he grades out, but his defensive metrics, I mean, the Astros would play Abreu at first base over Singleton. We know Abreu wasn't a quality glove. So whether it's a blind spot or they're just dug in on this for no logical reason, I do want to mention, with Dubon, if he's going to get the playing time against lefties, and that's whether Singleton or Loperfido is the other side of things, Jeremy Pena is a real problem. Yeah. And it's getting to where bigger picture on Jeremy Pena, right? The super duper star turn postseason 2022, that was not a springboard to greatness in 2023, right? He was pretty much mediocre, actually slipped a little bit and got off to the terrific start this year with the retooled swing and all that. Jeremy Pena's been for hunger for over a month now. Last 20 games, OPS isn't even 400. Last 32 games, OPS is a tick under 500. He walks once per week. He hasn't homered in over 100 at bats. I mean, he's a good glove guy, but he's not Ozzie Smith. If you had a real first base option on a full-time basis, when you're in kind of urgency mode, Dubon should actually be playing more shortstop now, because I don't think it's a big drop-off at short. Dubon offensively is just vastly outplaying what Jeremy Pena has done for several weeks. And now bigger picture, right? Jeremy Pena, maybe he has another leap in him, but third year, 26 years old, it's getting to where, I don't mean this season or maybe even next season, but Bryce Matthews, Dana Brown's first-round draft pick last year, his first-round pick running the Astros, is tearing it up at high A ball. He's 21 years old. He's not 12. You look at the long list of star players in Major League Baseball, they're getting to the major leagues when they're 21, 22 years old, at least for a crack, if not to tear it up immediately. And that's part of the Astros problem that Dana Brown's charged with fixing with the overall minor league system. There are guys at AAA. You look at Sugarland's record and go, wow, do the Astros have all these great prospects? They're 45-24. The Space Cowboys rule. No, they're just playing a bunch of older guys, 4A guys, Trey Cabbage and Cooper Hummel. And, Loperfido is 24. Shea Whitcomb's 25. Will Wagner's 24, 25 years old. They don't have any premium prospects there. So if they're going to build up the next generation of really, Jacob Melton is supposedly the Astros' number one prospect right now. He's 23 years old and he's doing okay at AA, not pounding on the door to get to the major leagues. So they have a real talent issue right now in their farm system, and the upcoming draft is another way to improve it. But it's not like you're drafting guys you think can help the 2024 Astros mount a furious finishing kick. There's been talent drain, and the brain drain from the front office, talent drain cumulative over time, and their margins have shrunk. So when you lose Tucker for a bit, you lose Fromber for a bit, you lose Verlander for a bit, it's all eroded to where a ball club, which was not close to great last year, so far this season hasn't been close to good. Right there, I think their high water mark of this season is 4-7. 3 games under 500. It started 0-4. They haven't been closer than that to 500 since 4-7.
Yeah, and the larger sample size we see of Jeremy Pena, he just appears to be a streaky offensive player, and I think it seems evident that they got really fortunate that one of those streaks occurred in the 2022 postseason. Charlie, you mentioned Kyle Tucker. Last update we received on Tucker was that he's walking sand crutches, but they believe he's going to need a rehab start or two before he gets back up to the big club. And that's honestly them getting lucky, in my opinion, just considering the trajectory of the rest of the season and the way all the other dominoes have fallen. The outfield, speaking of that, has been called a logjam, but really only in quantity, not quality. Which would you bet on? Jake Myers regaining the form that he had for most of this season, or Chas McCormick regaining the form that he's had over the past 2 seasons?
But Chas has looked terrible. He's put in a couple swings, but I mean, a 3-run homer against a C-level reliever in an 11-2 game doesn't make me scream, the meatloaf is being served for everybody again. Chas McCormick's also getting close to 30. It's not like Myers is a young kid. The overall athleticism, Myers clearly is the better defender, weak arm aside. But Jake had his hot stretch, like on a relative basis. Singleton had his hot stretch. Jeez. I'm waffling. Josh, you want to bail me out here?
I'm just going to go off a playoff experience. I haven't seen Jake Myers take Garrett Cole deep at Yankee Stadium in a playoff game. Of course, the catch Chas made in the World Series. So I'm hoping, I'm just going off playoff experience. I'm grasping at straws here because Jake has shown some good things this year. And Charlie, you're right. I mean, he just keeps making amazing catches in center field. So you're very happy with that. But you want somebody that's going to be another big power stick in this lineup that can really produce some runs, drive some runs in. So for me, if I'll go with Chas just because I've seen it before in the postseason, but I just kind of want to go back to Pena quickly. The problem with Pena, the power's just not there. That's what you're hoping with him, like him over Dubon, like, oh, Pena's jacked. He's got all this power. He's got 5 home runs in way less at bats. Dubon has 3. So it's not exactly like there's a big difference there. And Dana Brown was asked about this. He was like, do you think your guys get a little too pool happy at Minute Maid Park? And he basically said, yeah, I think maybe there is something to it. And I think with Jeremy, it seemed like he was hitting better when he was more okay with, I'm going to go the other way because their game plan is going to be to just throw sliders at the outside corner over and over again. And every now and then sneak a fastball in there just to kind of keep me off balance. I think Pena's got to go back to that approach. If that's where they're throwing, you hit it to right field, and the porch isn't that deep in right field at Minute Maid. Pena's a strong dude. He can get it out of there. So I'd like to see him doing a little bit more of that, but I get it why people want to see Dubon more, but as good as he's been lately, he hit a lot of balls really hard in San Francisco. He's usually only getting like 1 hit a game. It's just, but they've been some big hits and he plays a good defense. So for me, you just got to see the power out of Pena, and it worries you because you saw what he did in that postseason and it was so spectacular. And then we also look at how good Abreu was in that postseason. You don't want to compare those two guys, but it is easy to fall in love with the small sample size. And, on the other side of the coin, how awful Kyle Tucker was in the postseason last year. It just shows you can be one of the best ball players in the league and you can just be lost sometimes for a month at a time at the plate.
Pena swings at way too many pitches. He's back to that. He literally walks once per week. 11 walks drawn this season. If you're not a power hitter, you need to be hitting 320, 330. Dubon is over 300, but Dubon never walks either. It is one of the issues where the Astros batting average is better than they are in runs scored. They're about 12th in the American League in walks drawn. Altuve has never been a high walk guy, but he's trended up in recent years. Well, he's trended down this season, walking less, striking out a whole lot more. Altuve overall still a very good player, but his OPS is down 100 points from what it was in 2022 and 2023. Yainer Diaz hardly ever walks. Well, the week where you homer in 4 consecutive games, by all means, swing away. But when you settle back down to norm, you can't have a good on-base percentage if you're walking once every 10 days while you're batting 260. Right? You need more traffic on the bases to get more 3-run homers than solo shots, and to get big innings and bunch hits together and guys walking here and there. And too many spots in the Astros lineup, whether it's specifically working a count or chasing out of the zone. They have 4 or 5 guys in their lineup who just walk a very, very low percentage of the time.
The problem is you can only play Mauricio Dubon in so many positions. You know, first base has underperformed, so let's play him at first. Pena is struggling, so let's play him at short. Bregman gets hit on the hand, let's play him at third. Altuve needs a day off, let's play him at second. It's great to have a guy who can play all those infield positions, but there's only so many places. You're so spread thin, and you have so many needs in so many positions that are just struggling, that Mauricio Dubon, I mean, he's hitting well, but he's not the answer at any one of those positions. He's a answer, but he's just not any long-term answer for any of those positions. What you need is for Jeremy Pena to become a consistent offensive player. What you need is to figure out what your long-term first base answer is. And I just don't know that they're any closer to that. I think what we can all agree on is that Dana Brown is going to have his work cut out for him this trade deadline and this postseason. But the question of his viability at that position has been addressed now by an MLB insider. And we're going to talk about that in part 2 of Stone Cold Stros. To listen to the full show, it's up right now at your favorite podcast app. And to watch the rest of our conversation on YouTube, check back here on this channel, and we'll be releasing that shortly. And as always, go Stros.